Pink Tantra is a more appropriate path for women that are yoni carriers that want to experience inner wholeness, spiritual bliss, and more pleasure throughout their lives by working consciously with their sexual energy, their raw sexual energy, and by using it and moving it through their entire bodies. There are many colors that one can categorize Tantra under. There is white, red, black, pink, and gray, so it can get a little confusing. In today's lesson, I'm going to explore why Pink Tantra is better suited for women, the connection between the sexual and heart centers, and how Pink Tantra differentiates from any other tantras out there. My name is Silvana, I am a Tantra teacher and I am the founder of the Venusian Academy, an online school for the feminine arts and Pink Tantra. So I want to start off today's lesson by sharing a little bit about why is it that I personally believe that Tantra, specifically Pink Tantra, is the most appropriate path for women. And it might not be the best fit for men, and also like the other kinds of Tantra might also not be the best fit for women. So let's kind of unpack that because it can get confusing. So whenever we're looking at Tantra, we are looking at a system that is allowing us to create inner wholeness, and what we are putting together is our conscious energy with everything that we are with our sexual energy. So our sexual energy is like that raw primordial energy that moves everything. It's like it's the spark of life that animates us. So it's an extremely important energy, but if we look at the state of the world right now, we can see that there is so much disorder and chaos whenever it comes to our expression of sexual energy. So Pink Tantra is a path that connects the sexual centers and the heart center. So you might say, okay, that's perfect for women, but it's also the case for men. And yes, this is true. Like we all human beings, we need to make that connection between the sexual centers and the heart centers. However, whenever we look at, especially here in the West, okay, I'm talking to like westernized audience. Whenever we look at the world and social media and the television and ads and all the things, we have been bombarded by these over-sexualized images of women. And this is packaged as like the sexual liberation as well, of like, oh, women can do whatever they want with their bodies. And having that package and that marketing idea of like, I'm going to use sex to sell all these things, and this is women's empowerment, is a lie. Because these women, like most of the women that are being used for their bodies, they're not even, it's not coming from a place of empowerment. It's coming from a place of trauma. It's coming from a place of confusion. It's coming from a place of, well, I find, I am a sexual being, therefore I have the right to use it. And what's happening is that women become the animated Maya. So whenever we have so much of that animated Maya displaying the body and like pulling on sexual energy, it creates like a minefield for the masculine path, where all of a sudden their sexual energy is constantly being pulled in all different directions, and they're supposed to learn how to withhold regardless of the external pull. So in a way, the over-sexualization of women is purifying the world, because this is needed. The female form is purifying. When you observe it, it triggers a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. It triggers, lust in men, jealousy in women, and that's part of the purification that the female form offers the entire world. So this is one of the roles of Maya as well. But whenever we have a world that is full of minefields, of like constant pulling of sexual energy, of masculine sexual energy, this creates a lot of focus on that sexual center, and not so much space and focus for the spiritual centers, which the masculine path, it's all about focus on the spiritual centers and control and mastery over their sexual energy. So if you have a man that is dabbing with Pink Tantra, there is an aspect of red, which means there is an aspect of sexual Tantra. Maybe not penetration, because once we step into the energy of penetration, like sexuality like that, we're talking about red Tantra. So Pink Tantra has specific aspects of sexuality through the body. And this is very appropriate for women because women have had a trauma of sexual suppression. And the feminine path is about opening up the Kundalini centers and allowing the snake to rise through the spine into the crown. So it's about liberating that raw sexual energy. And first we purify it because there is a lot of trauma that collectively we all hold in these centers. For men, and this is, by the way, this is like my personal opinion, but I think for men, if they want to step into Tantra, the best step that they can take is to join White Tantra. Why? Because White Tantra is going to give them everything they need to purify their sexual centers, to move through the laws, to heat up the energy there and purify through spirituality, through ascending, pulling the energy up into the crown center. So White Tantra is very beneficial for men, and the men that have practiced White Tantra that I've personally met, they move very quickly. Like they're able to progress in their own journey and their healing and their wisdom and their sense of wholeness, completion and bliss and contentment within themselves. Whenever we dive into Pink Tantra, there is a drop of red, right? So this is a very good stepping stone maybe to move into Red Tantra for the masculine path. But I don't think men should necessarily start with Pink Tantra unless they are absolutely just extremely rare in their ability to control their sexual energy. And we don't have the education, we don't have the foundational spiritual roots on this side of the world to really have created a lot of that naturally. Usually men that have mastery over their sexual energies because they made a very conscious decision to master it and purify it and learn to control it. The feminine path is different. The feminine path, like I said, is about liberating that sexual energy and also purifying it. Because if we liberate the sexual energy and we just step into Red Tantra, a lot of women are also lustful. All of the sexual shadows that live in the masculine consciousness also live in the feminine consciousness. So without that purification, you're just stepping into, using Tantra as a package for the expression of your own lust. And that's what you see a lot of, unfortunately, in a lot of tantric schools or tantric practices that they dab into Red Tantra. It's just like a park, a recreational park of sexuality, of sex of everything with everybody, and it takes us away from the core of Tantra, which is a spiritual technology. It's a technology that merges and unites the animal nature with the sacred divine nature that we are. So for a woman, whenever we're looking at Red Tantra, it has the element, Pink Tantra, it has an element of white. And white is all about the purification aspect. And having a little bit of red, but not quite fully red, is helping us step into sexuality in a very conscious, slow, mindful, discerning way, without just diving deeply into it. I cannot tell you the amount of stories and from women that I've heard that step into Red Tantra and end up getting more traumatized from an experience that's supposed to be very healing. So because Pink Tantra is more personalized into my relationship with my sexuality and my relationship between my sexuality and my heart, and then with my heart I interact with others and the world, it is a safer path for women that have had some sort of sexual trauma, or that their family lineage has experienced sexual trauma, even if they didn't get to, they didn't experience that themselves. If it's in the lineage, then that's there as a dormant DNA memory. So Pink Tantra offers the purification aspect of it, the White Tantra, how we use it through the mantras and the yantras and the rituals and working with the 10 goddesses, the 10 tantric goddesses, and, adjusting. Okay, if there is trauma that I've experienced, I need to work with the heated, the more terrifying goddesses to move through that energy. And if there is more of a suppression because I have fear of my sexuality, because it was, I have very deep religious conditioning, then there are other goddesses that help with that. So Tantra offers a diagnostic tool, and it offers 10 paths, through the 10 goddesses that we can start exploring our sexual energy through. So This is why I think Pink Tantra is a very appropriate path for women that want to follow a feminine spiritual path and want to create their own inner religion connected to like the divinity within without so much externalized structure or hierarchies of command or of rites and priests and gurus. In addition, with Pink Tantra, you don't really need a guru because it is a blend. It's kind of like a left hand type of path that it's I would say it's more on the realm of the wild west. Yes, that's tricky and dangerous if you're giving your power away to another person, but if it's also spacious for those women that maybe don't want to step into the rigidity of the rules of like, okay, this is your guru, this is your teacher, you have to do XYZ, but this is more for the women that are interested in creating an internal spiritual system that allows them to organize their life and their universe and their spiritual experiences so they can understand what's what, while establishing that divine connection with spirit, with God, with source within themselves by using their sexual energy, by using their body. So it's a very deeply internalized journey. So there are more colors, right? So white tantra is the spiritual tantra of not really using the body, but focusing specifically on the pulling and movement of sexual energy through visualizations and breathing exercises. Red tantra is whenever we step into penetration and touching, like physical touching and merging of the bodies. That's red tantra territory. Pink tantra is a tantra that uses the spiritual foundation of white tantra to mantras and breath work and different practices that help purify the sexual centers from trauma, from lust, and from distortions, but using some of that sexual energy and using our own body as a vehicle for that exploration. Now we have black and gray tantra. So black tantra is a tantra that uses sexual energy to get three-dimensional powers. They're called siddhis. So black tantra is very strict when it comes to like mantras, practices, rituals. There is sexual rituals that you do as well. And it's for those individuals that want to have supernatural powers. And then gray tantra is for those individuals that want to explore white tantra, but to learn how to reverse rituals or, curses that might be sent off with black tantra. So it's like stepping into black tantra with the intention of purifying that energy. So I don't really have much information about black tantra or even gray tantra, just because it's a very secretive, hidden, and I'm not really interested in getting supernatural powers. For me, like it's I have more of a focus obviously on like the white and red tantra, and specifically like I designed the Venusian Academy on Pink Tantra because this is a very empowering path of using our own bodies and our own sexuality and the gift of being a woman in this lifetime as vehicles for spiritual bliss, inner wholeness, inner healing, self-love, self-acceptance, more confidence, and more pleasure. So all of this is being filtered through the heart. That's a very important element of white tantra. That's where we have more of that white into the red. Why? Because the heart is the purifying part of ourselves, is the bridge between the animal centers and the spiritual centers. And through the heart is that we're able to experience connection with other people and love for ourselves. So Pink Tantra is a path of self-love and self-acceptance, and self-love at like the deepest, most spiritual level of seeing ourselves as expressions of divinity, as perfect as we are, with our flaws, with the parts of ourselves that are difficult to observe and the parts of ourselves that are so easy to embrace, and seeing the wholeness in all of it. And whenever we are looking at ourselves with such love and divinity, we have to, there has to be some form of organizational system to kind of like bring it all together. And that's when we step into Shaktism, Shakta Tantra. So Shakta Tantra is the Tantra that is connected more with Shakti than with Shiva. And Shakti is the power of Shiva. So Shiva is like the observer, just that empty consciousness, and everything else that exists is Shakti. So under Shakta Tantra, we work with 10 goddesses, the 10 Mahaviryas. These are the 10 tantric goddesses that express an aspect of reality. Each one of them expresses an aspect of the universe, of reality, and of ourselves. And all of them live in ourselves. So through Shaktism and through Shakta Tantra, I am seeing myself as a manifestation of Shakti, a house for the 10 goddesses, and a vehicle for expression of Shakti herself through me. So when we work with the 10 Mahavidyas and we see ourselves as yoni carriers, women that have a yoni, all of the goddesses live in the sacred yoni. And this is the wisdom that we find inside of the Yoni Tantra, which is a very ancient Vedic textbook as well that explains more of the dynamics of what goddess is in what part of the yoni in a woman. And it's also a spiritual path of liberation through the worshiping of woman, the physical body of a woman. So whenever we observe ourselves as the carriers and the holders of this divine energy, we cannot help but to learn to use our own incarnation and our experience in this world as a means for liberation. It's like we begin doing all these rituals and all of these practices to honor the depth and the divinity of who we are, of ourselves, as manifestations of Shakti. So ultimately, we are the protectors, guardians, observers of the sacred yoni. And whenever we embrace in sexual union, this isn't just like, I want this and I get this. This is an union between Shiva and Shakti within that externalizes outside. So understanding that the sexual part of Tantra is more of like the flower that simply blooms when it's time. And it's not something that I'm going to go and try to force to get the inner experience, but it's the other way around. Helps us surrender into time, into our bodies, and into the slowness of simply being a woman alive and creating a spiritual relationship with myself. So I'll do a quick summary because I know this was a longer video. So Pink Tantra is the middle path between the spiritual Tantra and the sexual Tantra by purifying sexual energy through the heart and activating our heart center as the core of our being. And Pink Tantra specifically is a path that is more appropriate for women because it allows us to connect with our sexual energy, purify it from traumas, purify it from sexual distortions, and use that raw energy to achieve inner contentment, inner peace, and bliss. So if you enjoyed today's lesson, please interact with the algorithm, like it, send a comment, subscribe. This really helps this information to give to more women that are interested or are waiting for a path like this to show up in their life. And if you're interested in joining the Venusian Academy, check out the description box below. I have a lot of free offerings, courses, and I also have the opportunity of doing private mentorships with me. If you have already done inner healing work and you want to explore Pink Tantra and create your own organizational system, your own internalized religion to work with your sexual energy and expand your universe, then check out Bharani. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.